morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Selamat pagi semua.
My name is Adin and I'm from International University Liaison, Indonesia.
And my name is Alif and I'm also from International University Liaison, Indonesia.
So, before we start, we would like to welcome our guest of honors, Dr. Ilham Akbar Habibie, as our festival chairman of Orbit Habibie Festival, and His Excellency Pak Sidarto Reza Suryo Dipuro, Indonesian Ambassador to India. Can we get a round of applause for our two guests of honors?
Welcome to the second day of the Habibie Festival 2019. Before we start our event for today, we would like you to stand up to sing our national anthem of Indonesia. Please be seated.
So, yesterday, we talked about education and technology in our International Youth Forum. Students from Singapore, India, and Indonesia all attended and discussed about our education ecosystem that connects with technology. Do you want to see the highlights of yesterday? Let's check them out.
tiap tahun tuh diadakan terus gitu biar bisa mengajak para generasi-generasi zaman sekarang tuh bisa mengenal teknologi-teknologi.
Kalau bukan Anda yang membangun bangsa ini, siapa?
What an amazing day we had yesterday, as we all just saw from our highlighted videos. If yesterday was amazing, imagine today.
The Habibie Festival is giving us a unique opportunity to have a glimpse of a possible future in a condensed way by exhibiting important aspects of that future in an organized way, structured into 4 relevant ways, which are learning, work, play, and living.
Apart from the International Youth Forum that you all have experienced yesterday, the Habibie Festival provides an understanding that explains a better way to determine the forthcoming development and success of an individual, a society, and a country. However, in today's world, most of us would immediately agree that technology and innovation plays a dominant role in shaping our future.
Today's main event is about Indonesia's Education Forum, a forum where people who cares about the educational system here in Indonesia to discuss and take action.
We would like to invite Dr. Ilham Akbar Habibie as the festival chairman of Orbit Habibie Festival to come up onto the stage to give his opening remarks.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, I'm very sorry I cannot mention everyone one by one. Good morning, selamat pagi, assalamualaikum, and salam sejahtera. Welcome to the Orbit Habibie Festival 2019 to the Education Forum. It's my honor and pleasure to be here in front of all of you and say a few words about what we do, what we aim to do. The 2 students of International University Luzon, Indonesia already said a lot of things. Let me add to that. I mean, I want to underline that this is an event and a festival about the future. We want to understand what the future is, and I think in these times and days, many of us are still a little bit confused. There's a lot of technologies that seem to not only change, but disrupt the world that we have known so far. And many people, depending where we live in this world, are seeing the future as something which is uncertain, and some of them actually track back and want to rely on something they know from the past. And I've had many discussions around the world, particularly in countries that are already developed, that they see basically the future as something almost like a threat. Yeah. But for countries like, in particular in Asia, the ones that have a young dynamic population, perhaps with a demography like Indonesia, 60% below 35 or even younger, people like in this kind of country look at the future as something positive, full of hope, full of chances to build a better world and a better country and better life for themselves. So what we did in this Habibie Festival is basically subdivide the future as something not known into areas that we believe are important to understand, which are the future of learning, so basically the future education. How does it look like? Today we'll have many different presentations and discussions about themes like, what about STEAM-based education, science, technology, engineering, arts, and management? What about AI in education? What about robotics as a part of education, etc., etc.? I don't want to go too much in detail, but all of these are components. Still, we don't really know what the education will be best in order, what kind of form it will take in the future, but we know already the components. I think many of us are still experimenting with this and that. But at the same time, like in countries like Indonesia, the curriculum is still very, very traditional. So you have to get the grades in math, physics, etc., etc. So the things that we add on in today's discussions are still not part of the official curriculum, and I think it will take some time in order to achieve that. But I'm quite optimistic that we will little by little integrate that. In fact, I think it will be a very important part of the future curriculum. This is just as an example. The next topic will be, of course, the future of work. Let me say a few words about work here. I think all of us have heard the keyword 4.0, Industry 4.0, Education 4.0, Government in 4.0, or country, world 4.0, everything is 4.0. So what does it really mean? I mean, I think all of us also understand that the 4.0-ness means that we basically hyper-connect this world and gather lots of data. That data is then being put into a big database. It's called big data, literally. But how to evaluate that data, you can't do it by hand. You have to use a machine. And that machine, or computer, or program, however we call it, is called artificial intelligence. So the combination of artificial intelligence, big data, the way you collect, you use IoT, Internet of Things, means that everything we know, the clothes, the refrigerator, my bed, the comb, the car, everything is connected and feeds information into this database, and that is being exploited to make better use, better design, better processes related to everything, including the work. But many of us have questions, okay, if that happens, what about me? What about my job? Am I still here in this 4.0 world? So people talk about job loss. 4.0 equals to job loss. Well, my personal opinion is, yes, there will be job loss, but there's also going to be a lot of job shift. So new jobs that require new skills, new knowledge, new experiences. And what do we need for that? Education. So I think all of us, including the ones that already have a degree, in fact, they're already maybe PhD or professor, I think learning really never stops. You really have to update yourself all the time. You have to learn. And it's not difficult to learn. I mean, there are very reputable universities in the world that put their curriculum online. You can have online courses from universities like Harvard or University of Chicago, Stanford, or from Europe or from Asia, many times for free. And so we just have to do it, but the way how to integrate it into what you are and how you can present yourself to the future employer, or maybe you want to do your own business, I think the entrepreneurial part of future work will become much more dominant. And so future work consists of all of that, but really it's very difficult to understand it right now. It's evolving, but again, we do understand the components. So that is what we will focus on. So in a time of uncertainty, we have to grab really, we have to basically to hold on to the things that we know and develop from there. Then the future of play. Of course, if we work, we hope that we work so efficiently that we have some time for other things. So if I say play, it's not just playing games, but basically, how do we use the time that is not dedicated to work? We want to do, okay, we want to learn, but also there's other things we want to do, right? So that is something is also evolving, and it will be much more integrated. That's how we see. There's, of course, gamification processes ongoing everywhere. You want to gamify the education industry, maybe also even work processes, etc. But it's not only about that. Play means actually what do we do in our free time, and I think it has to do a lot of it with creativity. Creativity, at the same time, connectivity, because many of these activities we'll have is not just limited and confined to where we are physically, but also, in fact, we can connect to everybody on the planet with the hyper-connectivity, which is going to be not only reaching everybody wherever we are, even in Indonesia. I mean, the current infrastructure is now very focused on the remote areas, so we can really connect everybody in a meaningful way. Meaningful in this case means it's usable, it's affordable, and the last thing is very important, it's empowering, right? So it should really bring value to the user. So the last thing is basically the future of life or living. And yes, it means actually, for instance, we believe that in the future, all countries will go through a process of urbanization. So that means that more and more people will move to the cities. At the same time, the countryside will be more like a city. Meaning, if you imagine the countryside in the past, the countryside, everybody would do everything together. But the urbanization process will require a certain amount of specialization. So people are good in certain things, at the same time they can collaborate with other people. So I think the urbanization is actually twofold. People moving, or lifestyle, life patterns changing, even in the countryside. So these kind of things. So what does it mean? Future of living could mean, for instance, urban agriculture, urban manufacturing. We all know about the famous Fab City movement. Maybe some of us maybe have heard about Maker Labs. There's something called a Fab Lab, which comes from MIT in Boston, in the United States. And the Fab City came out from the Fab Lab movement, which means basically that there is an aspiration for many cities, and many cities have underwritten the charter already to be self-sustainable, autonomous by the year of 2044. So the paradigm would be the atoms stay at home, but the bytes are sent globally. So ideas are shared globally, but whatever we can produce locally, we produce locally. It's a new paradigm, I know. It is totally different than today. Today you would produce a car in country X and send it to country Y, even though you have to send it 20,000 kilometers. In the future, maybe we don't need to do this. We can do it right here, but the design and even if you have to change the design, you can do it right here in Indonesia. For that, you need machines, you need technologies, you need networks, and you need what? Education. Because again, everything we talk about the future needs a shift. It's not only the job, it's a mind shift. It's an attitude shift of what we know the world before. Because if you don't do this, I think we basically end up with a very connected world, hyper-connectivity also in terms of logistics, but it entails a lot of problematic challenges like climate change, like increasing carbon pattern, etc., which I think, although there are still some climate skeptics, but the fact is that we can measure it, that there are significant changes that we all have to face, and a country like Indonesia definitely will be very impacted by that because we are an island country, right? So some of the islands we will probably not be 17,000 islands anymore, but maybe only 13, yeah, we don't know. So basically, this is what we want to do, and I think a very important part of Habibie Festival every year, not only this year, is we want to be showcasing this to the young people, which are the future of our country, of any country, the future leadership, the future educators, the future entrepreneurs are the young people. So they have to get it at the young age. Get means not only look, but touch, feel, play, try out, etc., etc. All of that should be done here at the Habibie Festival. So let us together work hard and basically communicate and collaborate in order to make this happen, to make this country, this world a better place for all of us. I think this is what I have to say. Thank you for everybody participating in here. And I wish us all a successful Habibie Festival 2019. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ilham Habibie, for the warm opening remarks.
Next, we would like to invite the president of Grab Indonesia, a company that is well known and helped the development here in Indonesia, Mr. Rizky Kramadibrata. Can we get a round of applause for him, please?
Selamat pagi. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. Honorable Dr. Engineer Ilham Habibie MBA, my good friends as well. And of course, distinguished guests and when I say distinguished guests, it's really distinguished guests not only from Indonesia, but from all around the world. I see all. This is something that I think only Habibie Festival could do. I meet people, technologists, scholars, business, educational, from all around the world. So really, really good to be here and an honor to be here as well. Pak Ilham mentions a little bit about Grab, yes. Not so long ago we were called startup, but I don't think we are startup anymore. We're now like one of the leading technology company right now in Indonesia and in Southeast Asia. Many things we have done, and of course, why we exist, we inspired by many technologists, of course, like the likes of the late Professor Habibie. So thank you, the Habibie family, for the inspirations. In fact, not so long ago, we invited Pak Ilham Habibie to our humble office nearby in Kuningan areas. We invited him for a session with grabbers. We call our employees grabbers. So what we had is not a typical like one-way delivery from Pak Ilham Habibie, but it's more like a two-way discussions. But in that sessions, which we call Grab X, we discuss about many things. We actually have similar visions about technology, about the nations, about Indonesia, about how technology could make a better living, how can technology actually transform people to a new way of habits that could benefit many peoples. From that short sessions, one of those is that we agree also to support and participate in this great event, the Habibie Festival, in which I learned it's already in the 4th year running, yeah, Ilham Habibie. So it's an honor to be here, to be participating in this event, because we believe we inspire many people also out there, the attendance of this event. Not so long ago that we built from dreams, Grab is built from dreams. Not so long ago, we were just a company, a tiny company. In Indonesia, the first office that we built, it was a small ruko, Pak Ilham. And I think the Jakartans and Indonesian know, in the Ben Hill area. And when I say ruko, literally it's a ruko. It's a 3 stories ruko. I mean, like, not so much you could see in theirs, and not just like the dreams in theirs. The dreams of maybe the likes of the 50 people in theirs, but strong dreams. From there, we actually make things happen through technologies. Look at Grab right now. I mean, like, we're mimicking what late Professor Habibie is inspiring many people, but we're just mimicking a little bit of it. But look what we have become right now, what we have contributed to the people. Now in Indonesia, our presence is already in 224 cities. So you go to mostly any cities in Indonesia, you could get our service. Not just long ago, early this year, we have hit a marquee there, where we have made trips of 3 billion trips early this year. Maybe many of you couldn't imagine what 3 billion trips mean, including myself in the beginning. Imagine this, 3 billion trips could take you from Earth to Sun and back to Earth more than 23 times. It's that long, 3 billion trips. And that was earlier this year. And now we have actually delivering more than just trips, because we have become a technology enabler, not only for ride-hailings, but also delivering foods, introducing new technology like the e-scooters that you see outside. We could actually watch movies also right now. We could book hotels through our Grab apps, and so on and so on. But beyond numbers, because those are numbers, beyond numbers, we actually touch many aspects of life, things that unthinkable in the beginning. Like Grab babies. Babies were delivered in Grab cars, literally. I'm so blessed they're not, delivered in Grab bike, by the way. But many of the babies were named after Grab. So, I mean, like, I have few favorites. There's a baby boy names, abbreviations to Grab. Gibran Rangga Albani. Very creative, right? But wait until you hear the baby girls that was just born in Grab cars December last year. She's named Grabiella, so it's quite funny. Very creative, very creative. But now, a little bit funny story aside. We're actually touching life aspects of many people. We are a platform right now of more than 9 million micro entrepreneurs. When I say 9 million micro entrepreneurs, these are people that earn money for living every day through Grab and through technologies. And these are just not merely 9 million people. Almost 35% of these people, before joining Grab as a platform, they were jobless. Almost about 35%, they were jobless. So we create jobs. Also through technology, we bring more productivities to them. They earn more money than they earned before. So I think one of the other aspects Pak Ilham mentions about AI, job shifting, but also with AI, people could become more productive and could earn more. Not only for the jobless, but also for the likes of the medical doctors, because soon we will be launching our healthcare, e-healthcare service. Through AI and e-healthcare, not only that we could actually give access of medical service to the remote areas, but for the doctors itself, they could earn more money, they could become more productive. The physical surface of typical doctors, they usually serve about 20 to 30 patients in a day. With the helps of the AI, that same doctors, maybe like Dr. Rizky, could serve 100 patients in a day, even more to become 200 patients in a day. So the doctors could become more productive and earn more money. But what it is for the public, not only they can access the service remotely, but that means if the doctors becomes more productive, then the price of the service could also go down. That is the contributions of technology. So I know when hear about technology, people could become allergic. But beyond the same people that we talk about, the likes of doctors and maybe drivers, we also touch the lives of the people that maybe traditionally think they couldn't get a job. People with disabilities. We have more than 700 people with hearing impaired problem becoming productive in our platforms in Grab. Yes, they drive, they deliver foods. In fact, they give better service than the regular people because they pay attention to quality. Through that also I learned some sign language, by the way. I know now to say hi, apa kabar, and then Grab Indonesia, it's like this, it's Grab Indonesia. So more than that, I could learn also how serving customers is very important and learning from these people. And I'm so glad that, seeing that our platform being used by so many people for productivities, from people that maybe thinking traditionally they couldn't get a job. What makes me convinced is that technology is doing the right things for us, and much more convinced to expand furthermore to actually to use technology for many, many aspects. I know through this event, Habibie Festivals, the hope is that by our supports, not only that, of course, we support the idea and spirit, the immortalized spirits of Professor Habibie, but the hope is that also we could inspire so many people, so many young people that come. I heard from Pak Sachin, it'll be around more than 100,000 people will be coming. And I'm so convinced, there'll be young people coming in here, inspired by these events, in which he or she could become the next Grab. But more to that, could become the new Professor Habibie in the futures. So we believe that through learnings, educations, technology could become matured as well. And what is more important is to give back to the community. Because we believe when great minds work together, dreams come true. Like the dreams of the people for a better living, simple living, the dreams of the nations to become a stronger and powerful nations, so to make Indonesia a much better nation in the future. Thank you so much. Really a blast to be here. Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Wow, what an amazing special address from Mr. Rizky Kramli Brata. Can we get another round of applause for him, please?
Okay, now we would like to invite co-founder, Chief Strategy Officer of New Energy Nexus, Mr. Hendrik Tiesinga, to give us his special remarks. Can we get a round of applause, please?
Thank you so much. It's really an honor to come after such two honored speakers, so accomplished. Selamat pagi. It's really exciting to be here today at this great festival. I was here yesterday. We have a great booth over there. But I saw so many entrepreneurs, new innovations and new initiatives happening here in Indonesia. So I'm super excited about that. I work for an organization called New Energy Nexus. I'm not alone here. Our whole team is sitting over there. You guys can stand up. Come and show yourselves. So I'm merely the spokesperson today, and we're going to be talking about the future. As Dr. Habibie mentioned today, the theme is the future. The theme of the festival is the future. So we're going to be talking about the future of energy. We are an organization that supports clean energy startups, so I'll be telling more about that. But I'll begin to say a bit more about where energy is going. Energy is not a topic that we often think about as like the next big opportunity, but it is. There is a big disruption happening right now, and it's going to accelerate in energy. And if you want to create business, if you want to create your startup, if you want to make money, if you want to grow a big company in the next unicorn, energy is the place where you want to be. If I can have the next slide. So energy tech, that's what we're going to be talking about. We all know solar and wind. We've heard about Tesla. We know about the e-scooters. Grabs is having them outside. I saw them on the airport yesterday as well. On the right there, that is a new power plant. You can see there's no smokestack. There's nothing there. There's just batteries. This is a utility scale power plant in California that has replaced a gas-fired power plant. Here we have Google Nest, which is the smart home thermostat. It manages your climate inside the home. It also interacts with the smart speakers and the rest of the smart home systems. So managing the home and the energy in the home is a big opportunity going forward. So these are the kind of core technologies. There's a lot of fintech being developed for clean energy to finance all these different developments, IoT devices like Nest. So these are some of the core technologies that some of you know that are out there. And you might think, oh, you know, there's only a few Teslas out there, there's only a few solar panels out there, but this is a misunderstanding. If we go to the next slide, there's a big disruption happening at the moment. So over the last 8 years, the price of solar panels has reduced by 85%. The price of wind is reduced by 50%. The price of lithium-ion batteries has been reduced by 85%. And over the next 10 years, we're going to see similar reductions. And so in 2014, the countries where renewable energy was cheaper than oil and gas and fossil fuels were only 3, and it was only wind. That was in Denmark, Germany, and Uruguay. In all these other countries, coal and gas were cheaper. Only 5 years later, we can see all these other countries where now solar and wind is the cheapest form of energy generation. And this includes big countries like China and India. Indonesia is still on the coal list, obviously, because you have a lot of cheap coal at home. I'm originally from the Netherlands. We have a lot of natural gas, similar situation. But also these countries, it's going to change. And the renewables are going to be cheaper in only a few years. Next slide, please. So if you look at this graph, these are global average prices. In around 2021, the cost of new solar will be cheaper than the cost of operating an existing power plant. So it's not when you have the choice, should I build a new coal power plant or should I build a new solar power plant? Which one is cheaper and solar is cheaper? No, it's actually cheaper to close down an existing power plant that burns coal and replace it with solar. So that's dramatic. That's a big disruption. That's on the scale of digital cameras replacing analog cameras in just a few years. And this is the transition we're going to be seeing worldwide. Next slide, please. So Bloomberg New Energy Finance, kind of the authorities in this space, they are do projections. And so they have this phrase 50 by 50. So they project that by 2050, 50% of generation will be renewable. In fact, if you looked, it's 62% by 2050. Equally, electric vehicles will be replacing conventional vehicles by 50% by 2050. I personally think these are very conservative projections. It's going to be more 80 by 50. And the reason is that as this transition accelerates, governments are going to push, just purely for economic reasons, they're going to stimulate these new technologies because countries don't want to be left behind. You want to be part of the future. You want to create the jobs in manufacturing, in batteries, electric vehicles. You don't want to be the country that has dirty cities with dirty air when all the other countries are moving ahead. So governments are going to push for acceleration. And I haven't spoken about climate change yet. Climate change is obviously the big problem here in the room, the big elephant in the room. So increasingly governments are pushing for renewable mandates, for electric vehicle mandates around the world, particularly in Europe, but also in California and New York State. So that's going to push things forward as well. So my personal interpretation of this is going to go faster, and a lot faster than people realize. So these technologies, solar, wind, electric vehicles, they're very similar to the digital technologies that we've become used to. We used to have fixed phones, then we had mobile phones, and then we now have smartphones. All of these transitions happened just in a few years because the cost of manufacturing those technologies went down very rapidly. And this will be happening in electric vehicles, electric mobility, and solar, and in wind, much faster than people realize. Next slide, please. So the energy system of the future, we were talking about the future this morning, is one that is going from a centralized analog, so using conventional technologies, fossil fuel based, very regulated. So think of a coal power plant that pushes electricity out into the country, to one that's decentralized. It's digital with IoT, smart grids, smart homes, smart vehicles communicating with each other. It's renewable, it's decentralized, so there will be solar on many rooftops, there will be wind in many locations, so the generation of electricity will be very local. And it will be deregulated because you can't just have one or two big utilities providing this energy. There will be many companies playing in this field, many new companies. I work with a lot of utility companies, the big ones internationally. They see Google as their main competitor because Google is moving into industry. Google is an energy company. They produce all their own energy for their own servers. So the future is going to be very different for energy. And for a country like Indonesia, which is an energy company, you're an energy exporter. You export oil, you export coal, you power your country with these fossil fuels. These are very important trends to keep your eye on if you want to be developing the economic strategy of the future. Next slide. So here are a few startups that we're very excited about. You should definitely come to our booth over there. We have some of our local Indonesian startups that are doing great work with IoT devices, with energy access, and also we have our own solar power wall, Tesla power wall. So come check it out. So here are a few companies that are happening around the world that I'm excited about. So in the middle is Drives. This is one of the startups we supported out of Israel. They make software to manage electric vehicle charging stations. So already in Europe, there are thousands and thousands of electric vehicle charging stations. They need to be managed. So you have software that for the operators so they can see where their stations are, what's happening with them, which ones are malfunctioning. But also the car drivers, they need an app to find out where these charging stations are. So Drives provides leading software to do this. Another company, we were talking about gamification and play. So Ohm Connect is a California company that we're supporting. They do gamification to reduce energy use. So you have an app on your phone that has a game, and if at certain times of the day you switch off your air conditioning or you turn it down a little bit or you don't do your laundry, you get credits. You can buy things for those credits. You get actual money. And the reason why that is that at certain peak times there is high demand on the electricity grid. Prices are high, and so they sell the reduction of the load and they make money and they turn over that money to their customers. Solar Mosaic, another California company that we supported, is a fintech company. They provide loans to homeowners and to solar developers to develop new solar, rooftop solar. They take hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars from big Wall Street banks and turn those in small bankable loans for these project developers. They've been grown really fast over the last few years, almost a unicorn. On top, you don't see it so well, Power Hive, a company in East Africa, they built microgrids in remote areas. So powering people, providing them with electricity that currently don't have electricity, using remote payment systems, using M-Pesa, which is their digital money over there, using smartphone apps, etc. Blueprint Power, they are an AI company in New York, and they turn buildings into power plants, virtual power plants. So they use the solar and the batteries and the energy use and the heating and the cooling in those buildings to modulate the demand of the energy in the building, and they sell the difference into the grid and make money that way. So just a few of the startups, like I mentioned, come to our booth to see more of the Indonesian startups. We have like demos there. You can see the technologies, touch it, talk to the entrepreneurs. Next slide, please. So a little bit about our organization, New Energy Nexus. We are international startup accelerator and seed funder. We started in California over 15 years ago. We were one of the early investors in Tesla. The joke is that we also were one of the early ones to exit from Tesla, so we didn't become ridiculously rich, unfortunately. But we do provide acceleration and incubation services here in Jakarta, across the country. We have a fund. We're raising a 15 million seed fund. We have the first 5 million committed. We are providing seed grants and investments starting now. Right, Jenny? Yes. And we also do scaling. So we help startups from around the world match up with existing corporates, pilot their technologies and grow them. Next slide. These are the, excuse me. These are the countries we're currently operating, so we're growing rapidly internationally at the moment because this transition is happening all around the world, and we want to be at the forefront of supporting entrepreneurs driving this change. So if you're an entrepreneur, or if you want to be an entrepreneur, if you're excited about new business opportunities, about clean energy, making the world a better place, whilst also making good business, come talk to our team, come to our booth. We have everything, all the support that you need to grow your company. And if you're a business and you're interested in clean energy and innovation, you can partner with us. We can help you in that way as well. And I think that's it. Next slide. Thank you very much. So there's our email address, and get in touch. Oh, took the mic. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hendrik Tiesinga, for your presentation.
Habibie Festival is a very special event for all of us, and we would like to invite the co-founder of Orbit Habibie Festival, Sachin Gopalan, on stage, please.
Good morning, everybody. Selamat pagi semuanya yang hadir hari ini. I just want to take 5 minutes to first thank all our great speakers, sponsors, partners who are here today. Ini adalah kerjasama internasional karena kami sangat butuh kerjasama dengan semua negara yang ada yang udah maju di dalam teknologi. So we have to collaborate with a lot of countries who have made very good progress in some of the sectors which are important to Indonesia. So I really welcome all of you who are here today because this is a testimony to our ability to partner for Indonesia. So give yourselves a big hand. Thank you. In particular, thank you to New Energy Nexus, to Grab, of course, to JI Expo, who have, very courteously given us a really good experience at this venue. Intel is our partner for Future Skills, and they will be here soon in the next 2 months. We have Inspirasi Schools, Jaspal, thank you. Sharing what you do is very important in order to build some momentum into what the rest of the country could be doing. Telkomsel has always supported us. Habibie is one of the people who helped set up Telkomsel, so they've been very supportive. Orbit Guru is our new education venture, so most of you will be partnering with us as we go forward into doing programs with the government and the Ministry of Education, and I have to really thank Ananto for helping put together the partnership with both the Ministry of Education and Culture as well as with Pustekam. So just in case you didn't know, this program since yesterday and today is live broadcast on YouTube and the television channel called Tvedukasi, which is the nation's national channel for education. So it is live. Not only is it live, but also the programs are recorded. You can watch it. We'll be working with them to edit it into highlights, which I think are important because the access is to about more than 1 million teachers and students across the country. So that, whatever we are doing today is now embedded into the official content. It's available now for young people to see what they can do with all the ideas that are generated out of Habibie Festival. So with over 150 partners, I think you can see most of them here. But what we have not mentioned are the smaller partners, the small scale industry who are in the front selling food in the food festival or in this maker land. Small companies, individuals, maybe a group of 3 or 4 people doing robotics, doing interesting things, they're all here. So this is not just about big companies, it's also about individuals who believe they can contribute something, and I think we should support them. Which is the reason why I encourage all of you, lunch break is actually food festival, and support the local vendors. They're doing a great job and we need to empower them with technology, and I really thank Grab because Grab is helping them register to the Grab service, get onto a digital payments. 50% of these vendors did not have digital payments. Today they have. So that is the process. There's an ongoing process to bring them into the technology forefront. And thank this partnership very much for this. So that's all from my side. Please enjoy the Habibie Festival. We are going to go now into the education forum part, but we will be having walk-bys through the exhibition so that you all can enjoy the exhibition. But the education forum's beginning is extremely important because it is connecting learning to what we're doing in Habibie Festival. So I think Shoeb, my co-founder at the Economic Forum, is going to give you a complete overview of the education forum and get that started. Okay, thank you all. That's from my side. I give it back to the wonderful MCs who, as you have realized, are students. So we wanted our event to be emceed by young students who get an opportunity to host a big event like this. Thank you so much.
Wow, thank you, Mr. Sachin Gopalan, for your hard work and dedication for Habibie Fest.
Now, we would like to invite Mr. Shoeb Kagda, as the co-founder of Indonesia Education Forum, to give us his welcome address.
Thank you very much, our young, very dynamic MCs. Thank you all for being here. Good morning, Your Excellency, Pak Sidarto, Pak Ilham, our very honored partners. I must say that we are so glad that many of our partners are not based in Indonesia, but have Indonesia in their hearts, and which is what this education forum is all about. Guests, students, teachers, and every one of us who has a desire and an intention to make this country a better place. Welcome to the Indonesia Education Forum. As the founder of the Indonesia Economic Forum, hosting this event actually fills me with great pride and gives me, I think, the most satisfaction. The Indonesia Economic Forum was founded in 2014, but I think hosting the Education Forum really has allowed us to have an impact that we have always sought to have. Yesterday we had the Indonesia Youth Forum where we had about more than 100 children participate in discussions, in debates, and sharing their vision of what they want the education system to give them. So we may think as adults and as educators and as business leaders, we think that this is good for the students. But yesterday, I think those of you who were here heard from the students themselves. And I have to say, I for one was very, very impressed by their intelligence, by their articulation, and by their courage, because it is not easy to be able to present your ideas. Today, I think most of us know it's a cliche to say that we have transitioned from the age of the information to the knowledge age. Information is now widely and easily accessible. You can Google just about anything and find out the answer. But knowledge is a rare commodity. It can only be attained by years and years of learning, by curiosity, by investigation, and lastly, knowledge comes with wisdom. And I think that is what we need to seek to our students. So how do we create an education system that develops students who are wise, who are knowledgeable, who are courageous? Yesterday there was a question, how do we improve the education system? But is it broken? Or does it just need a little bit of tweaking? That is what we need to decide. Perhaps the starting point to answering that question is, what is the purpose of education? Why are we as the Indonesia Economic Forum keen to host an education forum? The answer is because we really, really believe that education is the foundation on which an economy, a nation, a society is built. That is why our focus today is not about pedagogy, it's not about curriculum, but it's on preparing our students, our youth, for the future. What skills will they need? What type of knowledge will they need to be productive citizens? As Ilham has mentioned earlier, and as many of our speakers mentioned before, we now exist in the Industry 4.0 era. What does that really mean? I'm glad and I'm very happy and proud to have with us today speakers and participants who are leading members of the business community. I think that is very critical because we need to hear from the business community as to what kind of skills they look for in the graduates that they will hire for their companies and for their businesses. But that does not mean that we do not need educators in the room. We have strong educators, visionary educators, who will also share with us their vision of what they want their education systems to develop. We have actually speakers from a very broad spectrum of industry, of the education system. So I think we will have a very, very good program for the rest of the day. The Indonesia the Economic Forum has always sought to be a platform, what we call a multi-stakeholder platform. We bring all players to the table. And this is where we want the Education Forum to be. The Education Forum must be a bridge between industry, between society, and between the education system. We believe that by being a bridge and by industry leaders collaborating, communicating with educators, with teachers, we will create a better education system. But more importantly, we will prepare our students better for the future. Now, education is also an industry. In fact, it is a $1 trillion industry. It is one of the biggest and fastest growing industries in the world. But why is so much focus being put on education? Because it is a high impact industry. It impacts society much more than any other industry. And without a good education system, we will not have social progress. So this brings us to where we are today in Indonesia. it has often been said that Indonesia is actually a very lucky country. It has a young demographic population. In fact, there is 60% or maybe 65% of the population is under 30 years of age, which means that we have a productive labor force going forward. We have a young, creative, dynamic population. That is the biggest resource Indonesia has. But if we do not do the right things today, that demographic dividend will become a demographic burden, and even worse, a demographic curse. Because hungry young men without hope, without opportunities, is the last thing that this country needs. So, how do we prepare our youth? How do we leverage on this demographic dividend? Because we do not want it to turn into a demographic nightmare. Yesterday, as I said earlier, we had the first ever International Youth Forum, and I think the students were very, very forthcoming and very, their perspective was really interesting. So we asked them, what is it that they want from the education system? And here were some of the suggestions. For many of us in this room, they'd be a little bit hard to take. But one of the top suggestions and one of the top requests was to do away, get rid of standardized testing. Right? The question, of course, is what replaces it. That is something that we need to consider, because standardized testing does have a place. The question is, how do we improve it? How do we mix it? How do we use a better system of gauging a student's potential and where a student is at the moment? So basically then the question is, how do we improve the education system without throwing out the baby with the bathwater? One of them actually said that he sees education. That's a very, very strong word. He wants more visual education. He doesn't want to read boring textbooks. He doesn't say, he actually said, I get nothing out of a textbook, but when I watch a video, I learn. And I think that is also a very interesting insight into what the future of education could be, and how we as schools and educators prepare ourselves for this coming age. I think many experts have promoted the use of technology, a greater use of technology in education. And as we do that, and as we heard earlier about AI, about big data, about algorithms, we must not forget that at the end of the day, it is about us as being human. How do we make sure that technology does not replace our humanity? Teachers, at the end of the day, are role models, educators. They are at the front line of helping us shape our future. So I would suggest that education is actually, having a good education is not a destination. It is actually a journey. It is a journey of self-discovery for many of us at all levels of the education spectrum. So then we come back to the original question. What is the ultimate goal of education? To me, it is to create a better society. And ultimately, it is to nourish the mind and the soul. And lastly, of course, is to ensure that as a nation, Indonesia is well placed to meet the challenges of the future. We learn so that we can have a better life. Thank you very much for all of you for joining us, for being here with us, and for sharing your insights. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Shoeb, Kagda, for your inspiring and welcoming remarks.
Next, we would like to invite His Excellency, Pak Sidarto Reza Suryodipuro, Indonesian Ambassador to India, to come up onto the stage and give us a few remarks.
Good morning, everybody. Pak Ilham, thank you very much for having me here. Pak Sachin, it's lovely to be here after talking about it for so many months. Pak Shoeb, ladies and gentlemen, kawan-kawan, adik-adik saya dari Indonesia. Saya adalah Duta Besar Indonesia untuk India, berkedudukan di New Delhi. Walaupun rupa saya begini, saya bukan Duta Besar India untuk Indonesia. Kalau kita simak dari pembahasan sejak tadi, bayangkan dalam 30 tahun dari sekarang, India akan menjadi ekonomi nomor 2 terbesar dunia, Indonesia ekonomi nomor 4 terbesar dunia. Berbagai kerjasama akan terlaksana antara dua negara. Bayangkan pesawat-pesawat terbang di Indonesia, di India, itu akan dirancang, dibuat di kedua negara itu. Bahkan kemarin Pak Ilham di New Delhi, diantaranya juga membahas mengenai pesawat terbang, kapal laut, internet, artificial intelligence, berbagai hal akan terjadi. Bayangkan masalah-masalah yang akan dihadapi saat itu, soal food security, soal pandemics, soal air bersih, berbagai masalah akan dihadapi, berbagai kesempatan. Pesan saya kepada kawan-kawan, adik-adik, belajarlah juga ke India. Datanglah ke India. Nenek moyang kita dulu ke India. Dari India juga datang ke tanah Nusantara. Kita saling belajar. Maka ini perlu juga dilakukan sekarang. Kalau perlu informasi, datang ke KBRI di New Delhi. Ada websitenya, Konsulat Jenderal Indonesia di Mumbai. Ada kedutaan India di Jakarta. Jadi jangan ragu-ragu untuk mencari informasi ke sana. Dan saya di sana juga mendorong orang India untuk datang ke sini. Karena masa depan di Asia itu akan ada di India, Tiongkok, dan di Indonesia. Dan adalah kawan-kawan, adik-adik yang akan membangun masa depan, menyelesaikan masalah-masalah yang muncul, memanfaatkan kesempatan yang ada, dan itu akan dilakukan melalui kerjasama, melalui networking, melalui persahabatan yang akan dimulai dari sekarang. So once again, I'm very pleased to be here. Thank you very much for having me. And of course, I'm the resource person. I'm in New Delhi 24/7, 365. So don't hesitate to reach out for any assistance, any networking that you need. We are there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bapak Sidarto Reza Suryodipuro, for your remarks.
Education is key to our future, and Professor AnilSahasrabudhe is someone who understands that. We would like to invite him on stage. Can we get a round of applause, please?
Yeah, selamat pagi. Good morning, namaste from India. I think I was very interested in yesterday's program where students spoke about what they think about education. And educationists must understand what young generation wants to do. I think One of the very important things which I would like to mention here is Dr. B.J. Habibie, the former late president, a great visionary who started this Habibie festival. I think I want to pay my obeisance since he passed away only recently, and still the festival goes on. So that is the spirit of Habibie. Like father, like son, we have Dr. Ilham Habibie, who has been taking this mantle forward, and with him there are many others who have been contributing for doing it happen, whether it is ministries, whether it is industry, both from Indonesia as well as from other countries, and of course a lot of educators who have come from 3 different countries, a lot of startups and unicorns of Indonesia who have been all present here, and we are all talking about future of education. I think that's what I'm going to talk about. What are we going to look for in the fulfilling of the future? Again, next one. I must mention here Shoeb and Sachin. These are 2 grand persons who have made it happen here. And I think a hand of applause for all of them for doing that. And I never knew Ambassador of Indonesia to India. He is also here, Mr. Siddhartho. Mr. Siddhartho, who happens to be in India, and he has been pitching for India here. I think that's what is very wonderful. We have students from different parts of the world who are assimilated here, teachers assimilated here, and therefore my greetings to all of you from India. Next one. Now I would like to take back, we talked about future of education, but we must reflect how education has changed over thousands of years. This is the ancient Gurukula system. Under the tree, a guru, a teacher, was teaching the students. Next. We have 2 of the oldest universities of the world in India, Takshila and Nalanda, in the 5th century and 6th century BC. That's how education started. This was a residential education system which we talk about today, existed in the 5th century BC itself. We have modern universities which have come on. Next, please. So I'm just showing the hand. Next, please. These are all universities of the world which have come in the modern era, and therefore we must start learning what needs to be done now today. Next. So one of the most important things which everyone talked about, education, what it needs to do. Swami Vivekananda, the great saint of India, in 1893 on the September 11th in the Chicago address, he had this sentimental statement, education is nothing but manifestation of excellence already in man. Every human being is divine, he has something inside, we have to only bring it out. And therefore, education system is for taking us from darkness to light, enlightenment, empowering, creating responsible citizens who are ethical, creative, empathetic, confident, useful to society and the future generation. That's all education is all about. We may have AI, IoT and all that, but finally we must create great human beings, and that is the spirit which we should all imbibe. The next one. Our Prime Minister, Modi, has been talking about several missions in the last 5 years. They are very interesting. Each one of them has something to do with education and technical education in particular. Whether it is cleaning India, cleanliness drive, whether it is taking care of the villages so that migration from villages to cities do not take place and the villages also get developed as much as cities. We have Digital India, where digital divide is to be overcome. Skill India, skilling is very important. Because all of us know, both India and Indonesia, which talks about demographic dividend, in order to take benefit out of that, we must skill our people. Skilling is very, very significant and important. Then comes smart cities. These are also important because cities should not have slums and living conditions should improve in the cities. Then Make in India and Startup India. I think these are the missions which have been enunciated by the government. Next one. So three important things which happened. First one is Jan Dhan Ayojan. That means a yojana, a policy in which every citizen has a bank account. A very significant thing. It's not easy to have bank accounts for all 1.3 billion people. Similarly, unique ID for every citizen, which is called Aadhaar. I think these two initiatives have made digital empowerment of the people. Anything, whether it is scholarship, whether it is salary, whether it is remuneration, directly going into the account of the citizens and not through cash, through the middleman where it does not reach the right man. I think these are absolutely interesting digital initiatives. We have electricity and fiber connectivity to all the villages. Fiber connectivity has still not reached, but electricity has reached every nook and corner and every village of India. Medical insurance for all. I think this is another very important thing because for people, next to education is medical treatment. And making it happen for every citizen is a very, very interesting thing which has been also made happen. Next one. Now comes the technology and the corresponding challenges. We all talk about disruptions happening. There is a lot of disruption both in the social sector, economic sector, political sector. And therefore, how countries of the world will take care of employability and job creation. This is very important for our education. Industry 4.0 leading to Education 4.0 or Education 4.0 leading to Industry 4.0. I think we need to debate on this because it is education which has to lead to the industry. So today 5G will come, tomorrow 6G will come. But we need to teach all those things in our curricula, in our institutions. Then one of the biggest challenge which the industry is facing is about talent search, right kind of talent. How do you nurture it? How do you support it? How do you take it forward for betterment of the society? And here comes innovation. It is only innovation which can make this all happen. And therefore, innovation has a very key important element in our education. And therefore, fulfilling the promise for the future, whether it is through education or technical education, we must understand various nuances that exist in the present education system, what transformations are desired, what changes are desired, and we need to do all of that. Thank you. Next one. Next one. Now I'll come to a few indicators which have made it happen in terms of improving the quality of education in India. And the spirit behind that is innovation. We have had a National Innovation Foundation, a very interesting phenomenon, almost similar to the Habibie Festival, started about 15 years ago when Dr. Abdul Kalam was the President of India. What started happening was, how do we get our even uneducated, less educated, who create innovation, how do we support them? And that's how it was National Innovation Foundation, and grassroots innovators were taken to the President's house and felicitated there to create a system of innovation in the country. We have recently, in the last 5 years, what is known as Niti Aayog, which talks about tinkering labs. It is not that AI has to be taught in the colleges alone, but right from schools. And therefore, these tinkering labs, funding is provided to about 5,000 institutions already. The target is 8,500. There is a support system where it is something similar to the Maker's Lab in a school. And school children will start doing innovation using those equipment. And that is the spirit of creating innovation right from school times. Then there are incubators from Department of Science and Technology as well as Niti Aayog. And a startup fund of 10,000 crore rupees is created for supporting startups which have been created in the country from the schools and colleges. A culture of angel investment, venture capitalists, Saturday clubs, TIE, they are all empowering the citizenry in terms of finding innovation and entrepreneurship. Next one. We have Ministry of Human Resource Development, which is the Ministry of Education in India, which has created an innovation cell in our organization AICTE and created innovation clubs in more than 1,500 higher educational institutions. The target is there must be a space, like Siddhartha said, he is available for all the citizens 24/7, 365 days. Similarly, in every institution, we must have innovations lab or space where anytime a student gets an idea, whether it is a holiday or otherwise, he must be able to go there and experiment. And that is the spirit of innovation which is being carried out through this innovation movement. We have two very interesting initiatives which are National Digital Library, a resource which is created in IIT Kharagpur with more than 30 million documents and books and periodicals which are available free of cost for all the citizens of the country, all students. The next important thing is National Academic Depository. The certificates of all the students are deposited into this depository. Thereby, even if you lose your physical certificate, it can be downloaded from anywhere in the world. I think this is the first of its kind initiative done anywhere in the world. So that any student, he need not worry about verification of his records, but one can verify from the digitally signed certificates available in the National Academic Depository. We have two different types of ranking systems evolved. One of them is National Institutional Ranking Framework. The other one is ranking for innovations, how institutions are becoming innovative. These are two things which have been started off in the last 4 years. Next. We have these 10 technology initiatives which will serve the mankind in the future, whether it is education, whether it is agriculture, whether it is energy, whether it is transportation, whether it is development of new materials. I think what is done is ministry will support those institutional projects which have collaboration with either another research lab or an industry. Without that, no funding will come to an educational institution. So institutions are forced to go and marry with industry and industry bodies so that you will do something which is required by the industry and by the society. The next one. And the complex system of education that exists in India. Probably this slide is very difficult to understand. There are more than 1,024 degree awarding universities or institutions of excellence in the country, of which 904 are universities, 49 central, state, deemed, private. Probably definition of each one of them is too complex. I will not go into that, but only I would like to state here that the nation of 1.3 billion, as much it is diverse in terms of culture, in terms of languages, it is as much diverse in terms of number of types of educational institutions in the country. The next one. Now the pedagogical change. Yesterday I spoke about it. Today we can't have a class where a teacher teaches for 50 minutes non-stop on the blackboard or on a OHP or on a slide presentation. But we want today's education to be a flipped class or a blended class where earlier lectures were happening here, assignments given for home. Now lectures, students will watch the video at home and they will come for the classroom for interactive activities. I think that is the future of the education. Next. Now new way of learning, as I said, it is not memory based, which is all what is called as standardized testing. People are talking about standardized testing. That means there are standard questions, there are standard answers. Students use their brains, artificial intelligence, in order to decipher what question was asked in the previous 5 years, and they anticipate what is going to come. Instead of that, we want questions, examinations, which are based on Bloom's taxonomy, where creativity, where understanding, where application, where synthesis, ideas These are all to be asked in the question paper, and that's what is significant in the new education. And in fact, many of the students yesterday were saying the same thing. I think we are in sync with them. The new education has to take care of this. Next one. Now comes a national platform which is called as MOOCs platform. This is Swayam, study webs for interactive learning by young and aspiring minds. That is the long form of Swayam. And this Swayam in Sanskrit, in Indian languages, is self. That means self-learning. So this is a platform which is similar to edX, Coursera, and many other platforms in the world, but indigenously developed. And we have more than 2,700 courses, already more than 3 million users, and as many as 120 countries are watching this. Maybe somewhere only 100, 200, somewhere thousands. But this is a platform which is available free of cost for learning. 2,700 courses, starting from arts, commerce, science, engineering, law, medicine, dance, music, drama, painting, photography, you name it, and you have a course on that. I think this is a great resource which the entire world can make use of. Next one. Next. Yeah, there are two interesting initiatives developed by two of our IITs. One of them is speaking tutorial. What it means is very difficult subjects which are taught in English in most of the universities and IITs. People from background like Basa or Tamil or Marathi or Hindi, they will not understand that particular concept so easily. So they are translated into different languages, dubbed, and any young student wants to learn in his native language, these are made available to the students. And the resource is, since IITs have students from all over the country, it is the students who translate them, and they get a small honorarium, and it makes available the education for masses in their own language. And this is spoken tutorial. Next one. We have another very interesting teacher training program with about 4 million teachers. In higher education itself, there are more than 500,000 in engineering colleges. How do you train them in the new ways of technology, new ways of teaching learning process? Simultaneously, how 10,000 teachers can be trained. This is a model developed because we need faster movement in terms of educating our teachers, one side, and reach to all nooks and corners. And what is the model? The model is you select resource centers all across the country in different provinces, bring 1 or 2 teachers from there to the IIT, train them in that, and they become the trainer resource. They go back to their institution, and you invite other teachers in the neighborhood. The lecture will still be given by the best professor of the IIT through a platform created by Amrita University called A-View. But a local teacher who is already trained will become a coordinator who will become the bridge between IIT professor and the local professor. In case something is not understood, he will translate, he will take action into that. There are lab classes, there are theory classes as well. Next. Next. Next, next. Next, next. Yeah. We have this skill qualification framework, which I talked about, where movement of people from one skill program to the graduation program, vice versa, is possible. Next. Now I will come to a very interesting open innovation model which is developed, which is Smart India Hackathon, where hundreds of thousands of students participate for solving the problems of industry, problems of the universities, problems of the government. Next. Next. Yeah, this is how the journey started 3 years ago in 2017, went on to 18 to 19. I'll quickly show through a few of the interesting things. Next one. This is the process involved. We ask for problem statements from government, industry, give it to students as challenge. 200,000 students apply. Industry experts will shortlist them in terms of better ideas. We bring them down 200,000 to only 10,000. And then in 48 different places in different locations in the country, students will come in Smart India Hackathon Software Edition. They will work 36 hours non-stop to find the solutions. And in Hardware Hackathon, they will solve the problem for over 5 days. They come with an idea and go out with a prototype from the workshop. I think these two innovative initiatives have converted many of the innovations into great startups. Next. So challenge them with water, energy, environment, agriculture, education, healthcare, security, all variety of problems. And young students from colleges, they come out with brilliant ideas which are out of the box. Next. Next. These are all statistics I don't want to show. This presentation is available. Anyone can look at the numbers. Next. And this is how the activity goes on. The Honorable Prime Minister comes during the hackathon at night, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and speaks with all the centers firsthand so that they get inspired and motivated. Next. 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 This is how the scene looks like. You know, it's all vibrant in the night. Night 12 o'clock, students working like this. Next. This is how Prime Minister interacting with students. Next. Now, these are some of the interesting items which have converted into the startups right when students are in the colleges. It is not after graduating. They are still doing their studies, but they have converted their ideas into startups. Next. This is real-time blood managing system so that any patient or anywhere, if there is an accident, where is the nearest blood bank available will be available on the mobile app, anywhere in the country. Next. Similarly, secure copier, you know, the pen drive. If you try to steal something from some PC, it will delete all the files. This is a very interesting thing which has been developed. Next. The Ayurvedic applications at the fingertips. Next. This is low-cost indigenous bone conduction headphone. Your thoughts can be translated into actual words and you will be able to understand that. Next. You have Hope Brigade, where the pharmaceutical companies and their products, some of them are likely to cheat, so in order to avoid that, this is being used. The next. This is how smart traffic works, which has been implemented in one of the cities in Punjab, which was an invention of the students. Next. Samsung came out with using the cell phone camera and detecting using that lighting heart rate. Heart rate is detected by using your mobile phone camera. Next. Cisco asked for public announcement system for railways because for inquiry counters there is long rush. So automatically bot chat will talk to you about the inquiries which you are trying to make. Next. There is a Braille book. Any book can be converted into Braille language so that blind can read it. You know, this is what is again developed by students. Next. And this was Singapore India Hackathon. We started at the initiative of the two prime ministers. This was in Singapore edition, and this is IIT Madras edition, which happened very recently. Next. Now we have other interesting goals which have been met in terms of ranking, in terms of Global Innovation Index of India, ease of doing business. All of that is helping education sector and the industry in order to grow and create future jobs. Next. I think new education policy is in the offing. What all we are talking about in education sector is likely to be implemented in the next few years in India. A National Research Foundation headed by Prime Minister with a very huge fund for research, support for innovation in all universities. And interestingly, we are going to have a new TV channel which is exclusively on innovation. Like we have various channels for National Geographic, something like that. There will be a channel which will only talk about innovation all over the world. Next. Now, use of technology for promising the future. I think these are very important elements. Use of technology, ICT, AI, we must use for transparency, good governance, justice system, zero corruption, work for all, decent income for people, peace and happiness, and finally egalitarian society. I think this can be achieved only through education, collaboration, and respect for each other. I think this is the key word which is very, very important. Respect for each other, collaboration, and education only can do this. Next. This is the last slide, what we can do together. I'm here in Indonesia. India and Indonesia have common problems. In Indonesia, that Indo world has India anyway embedded in it. We need to work together. The problems and challenges of us are together. And therefore, if you expand this hackathon, which we have started with Singapore, to make it an ASEAN hackathon, where problems of agriculture, education, energy, environment, healthcare, transport, water are solved, I think we will be able to help entire globe in terms of solving the problems of the globe. I think we must use all the technologies that are available, but at the same time create good human beings, which should be the spirit behind that. And our MOOCs is available. We can incubate some of the Indonesian companies in India, Indian companies in Indonesia, and further later in ASEAN and the entire globe. I think that is the way forward for doing collaborative steps forward. Thank you very much for your patient hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor AnilSahasrabudhe. But we would like to invite you back on stage, as well as Mr. Rizky Brata and Mr. Hendrik Tiesinga to come on stage to collect their memorandum of appreciation.
We also would like to invite Dr. Ilham Habibie to give the memorandum of appreciation to our special guests. Coming up to our next session, the first panel discussion, Role of Technology in Education, hosted by Ministry of Education and Culture, Republic of Indonesia. Before we start our first panel discussion, we would like to invite our moderator, Haifa Segeir, Director ASK Consulting, to come up to the stage and will take over this panel discussion.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honor for me to be here to moderate the first panel discussion of the day. The theme will be the role of technology in education. Without further ado, I would like to invite our distinguished panelists for the discussion. Bapak Ananto Kusuma Seta, Senior Advisor to Minister of Education, of Innovation and Competitiveness. Dr. Ilham Habibie, Chairman, National ICT Council, or One Tiknas. Bapak Tjahjadi Rahardja, President Director, Jababeka Infrastructure. Aditya Tangri, CEO, Caliber Technologies. Please have a seat. To start the discussion, I would like to ask Pak Ananto for the opening address. The floor is yours, Pak.
Good morning to all of you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Excellencies the ambassadors, Pak Siddhartha, Honorable Pak Ilham, the co-founders, Pak Shoeb, Pak Sachin, and all guests. First of all, on behalf of the Ministry of Education and Culture, I would like to convey high appreciations to the Habibie Festival for inviting us to be a host on this panel. The second thing I would like to mention in this short time, I would like to present some slides that can have a what you call idea why the technologies become more and more important. And I would like to say the technologies become the DNA of the futures of education. Next slide, please. I think Ilham already mentions about the technologies. The role of education is to meet two types. One, the success of education have to satisfy the world of job. The quality of education have to be satisfied that the graduate from education get a job in the futures. At the same time, the quality education have to also meet the demand of the students. Both the students and the job are changing rapidly. It's because of the technology. Again, technology has always been a disruptive forces. If then the student is changing, the job is changing, then the education have to be changed. The role of technology in education, I think Professor Anil mentions a lot of things about smart content, personalized learning, adaptive learning environment, global and open learning, advanced research, automating teachers' tests, and so on and so forth. Next slide, please. Now, what is the problem that we need to solve for the futures? First, I would like to mention the learning crisis. This is the very important, that very fundamental that we need to solve for the futures. Learning crisis number one is on the relevance. Educations that we need today is educations that meet the demand of the market. Unfortunately, there is wide-scale gap between the supply and demand. We urgently need to shift the paradigm of educations, not push but pull, demand-driven. Link and match education is a must. Look at the number. More than 550% of Indonesian graduate is mismatched, vertically and horizontally. At the same time, you see 3 from the 4 top companies in Indonesia. It's very difficult to find local talents. 18% of our workers now working as a freelance. 52 million workers will be replaced by the technology. This is the essence of the issues that we need to reshape our education because learning crisis. Next slide, please. Learning crisis number 2, the disparity, inequality. Pak Habibie, Pak Ilham mentions that Indonesia is a huge country, more than 17,000 islands, extending more than 5,000 kilometers. There is inequality in terms of the quality of education. Look at the number. Papua and Jakarta, a huge disparity in terms of the quality of education. Question is, can the technology solve this kind of problem. Education have to be no one left behind. Technology is a tool, is a driver to make no one left behind. Learning crisis number 3. Next slide, please. Is quality education. Look at this. Can you click it? Click again. This is a score on the science and PISA from 26 until 2015 in the OECD countries. Look at this. This is OECD countries. The access of the students is 100%, but the quality education is not improved. Why? The more students have a gadget, the more modernized school, but looks, the quality of education is not improved. It's stagnant. There is something wrong with the education in there. Something wrong with the technologies in there. The same things with the Indonesia. It's a same level from 390 until 390. Look at this there, Portugal. Click first, again, Singapore. There is 2 countries that I want to share in this forum that the increase of the quality of education. What is the lesson learned from Singapore and Portugal? Now, when we look in the World Competitiveness Report, it just released last week, Singapore is number 1. Why? The education in Singapore is keep growing at the number. Next slide, please. This is the leapfrog pathway of the education that we need to the future. Incremental is not enough for Indonesia. We need leapfrogging on the education sectors. On the learnings, we need to change from the remember and understand to become the evaluate and creating. Become creators. This is very important. For the teachings, we need to move from lecture-based into the project-based. Ilham mentions, playing-based, playfulness is very, very important for the future. Progressions, the predetermined into the individual-based educations. Verifications, education-led into the high industry-led educations. Industry who knows about the skill. So the curriculum is not designed by the school, but should be school and industry. People, licensed teachers now, in the future, the people should be everyone become the teachers. From the company, from the industry, have to be eligible, stand up in front of the students. Please, study in school. Study should be not in a school in the future. Everywhere, anytime, it's a place for study. Data compliance to the data transforming learning experiences. And lastly, the technology is not substitution technology that we need for the education in the future. We need to move from the substitutions into augmentations, into the modifications and redefinitions. Next slide, please. This is the last slide. We not start from the scratch. There's 3 enablers, a driver for mainstreaming technology in education. Like Pak Ilham mentioned before, there's 3 things. We are young. The bonus, the demographic dividends, demographic bonus, more than 60% of Indonesia is youth. The lowest dependency ratio between productive and non-productive people will be in 2021. This is a timely. We got bonus, we got disaster democracy. So this forum is timely for Indonesians. Second thing, we are connected. More than having almost all the teachers, now it's with the teachers, with the internet users. 81% of junior secondary students using internet, and more than 90% of the senior secondary using internet. Schools, more than 70% of our school connected with internet. Question is it not enough? Connecting with internet, providing with the tools is not enough. We need to do a lot of things. Lastly, we are committed. Last month, I would like to share in this forum, we launched what we call school digitalization program. We distribute 1.7 tablets to the elementary school. Again, this is just the beginning. Our commitment for bringing our future educations with using the technology. This afternoon, we will hear from our colleague who's speaking about Rumah Belajar. It's a content of the learnings in the digitally that we are growing and need your help to jump in. I think these are the what you call key issues that I would look to share, and hopefully by we have the forum we can discuss for the future of Indonesian education. Again, thank you very much for the Habibie Festival. Again, thank you very much for the forums. Good morning.
Thank you, Pak Ananto. Very interesting presentation. I would like first to start the discussion with Pak Ilham. Pak. How do you see technology in the process of learning and how it will develop the development of human capital? Yes.
Thank you very much. First of all, I think we have to see technology in many ways. First of all, it is a tool that helps us learning, but it's also subject of the learning itself. And through basically combining that, I think that is creating many new things, which are basically based on technology. Because many challenges, many chances that we see in the future, I think they are only solvable if you use technology appropriately. So let me just maybe start with the first, the tools, meaning technological tools. We've spoken a lot about distant learning. You mean you can learn wherever you want, whenever you want, and also whoever. Yeah, it's a ubiquitous thing. You can learn, anybody can learn everywhere at any time. The other thing is basically that technology is a tool also for the teacher. The classes in Indonesia tend to be very big. Yeah. The future will be individualized. So every teacher needs to know the individual student. They have to know what the student does. And the role of the teacher is not only to convey information, but that can be done, as already shown in many cases today, through the computer. We can get the information to the computer, maybe as a video, but also to be a mentor, a coach to the student. For that, you need knowledge about the individual student. And I think that much of the technology that we will see in schools later will help the teacher to know more about the individual student. So, I mean, if you have a class of 35, 40 people, it's very difficult. I mean, we ourselves, with a group of friends, I founded a school 15 years ago, and we found that if you really want to be very personal, the class size we could max without tools is 16. If you want to go beyond, then we'll have to use tools. And I think that is something up and coming where technology can help teachers to be a better teacher. Likewise, I think technology can use the student to get information from other students, maybe through networking with their friends, although they're not in the same room, collaboration, and tools for collaborative learning, I think is another thing. Now, technology as a subject, right? Technology itself always has an applied aspect to it. So as many in this hall already said before, a future way to learn is the project-based learning. Meaning to say, what is really being taught there is technology, right? So the use of something to solve something. Technology is never developed for the sake of itself. It is developed for making life easier, to solve complex problems, to basically assist people in a certain job. But it's an applicative, the application, terapan in Indonesia. That is what differentiates technology from, say, science. Science doesn't have to have an application, right? So that is something as an automatic thing in the future where technology will be very much in the limelight, but it needs to be linked to something which uses technology. And I would say in the future world, it will be innovation, right? Innovation and technology are related, so the proper use of technology is always in the context of innovation, and the other way around, innovation is only possible in many cases if you use appropriate technology. So the last thing is basically what I said about the project itself. I mean, sometimes through collaborative learning and working together, you create new things, the innovation itself, right? So technology is sometimes the outcome, new technologies of those kind of learning processes. So I think in the future, the school doesn't have to be a school only, but there will be incubators around the schools. There will be offices around the schools, and so the students, they learn at the same time, they collaborate in a startup, and then they get a lot of services around the school, and this is, call it an education, almost like a mall concept. You have many services. It's not just the school and the offices of the teacher and the classroom, but there's other things in the school. Call it an open school concept. I could imagine that will happen maybe in the next few years. Yeah. Maybe give it back to you.
Thank you, Pak. If we are talking about technology, I would like to ask Pak Tjahjadi, you know, technology is related to infrastructure because it has to be, for instance, the school needs to have the right infrastructure for them to actually have the technology in the classroom. Can you share your thoughts on that, Pak?
There's multiple facets of technology actually in the class or in school, you know, as Pak Ilham Habibie said before. Number one, there is a technology, teaching technology itself, where now more and more new technology on how to teach effectively or new way of teaching. For example, the one that given example before is the computer-based learning. Later there will be video-based learning, but then or AI-based learning, something like how they monitor the progress of each student to make sure they understand. So not only that we grade the whole school on average, but really monitor student by student. That's one aspect of technology in the classroom. But then another technology, as Pak Ilham also said, is how do we introduce technology to students? They need to be able to adapt to the new technology that's happening. We can say that, for example, now students playing with drones, but that's a new technology where it goes. Because in my field of work, for example, now the trend is going to drone mapping, use drone to map. This is something like Industry 4.0 already. So if we teach our students how to use drone, take pictures and map, that will be useful for their work in the future. Or let's say 3D printing, because manufacturing technology is going into that direction now. So actually in the field, it's very difficult to find such a person. So that's why it's, I think, important to introduce technology into the classroom, not only for teaching, but then educate them, exposing them to what's the incoming up in the future technology. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pak. Aditya, I would like to know more about your thoughts around, you know, technology as part of the tools for learning. So can you share a little bit about what you think will be a great use of technology in the process of learning?
Sure. Yeah, so when you talk about education, I feel everyone talks about the challenges in education and the innovation that you must do in education. But I think education, or what the education sector or industry is facing, it can be divided into two challenges. One is a supply chain logistic challenge, which is how to deliver education. So it's kind of similar to what Uber or Grab is doing, that the last mile or the last kilometer, how do you deliver that? And after you have delivered that knowledge, the second challenge is design thinking. What do the people, now that they have access to the knowledge? So I saw Ananto's slide where in Portugal, even though they have access, they're still falling below the line because maybe they have solved that supply chain logistic problem, but they haven't really been able to solve the design thinking part of the challenge. So, I mean, technology is not magic. Technology just amplifies the framework or the models that you apply, and it makes it more scalable. And also something like AI would, right now it can save a teacher about 30 minutes a day. That's where AI is at right now. So I feel the questions that we must be asking is in terms of the education system that we have right now was meant to serve the industrial revolution. Now it's everyone says industrial revolution 4.0, but I think in education it's not a education revolution, it's a education renaissance that is happening, wherein we must ask questions about why the school must start at 8 a.m. and it must end at 3 p.m. and why something that you learn between 8 a.m. and 3 p.m. is formal and mandatory, and something that you learn between 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. is termed as extracurricular. So yeah, technology is very important, but one must question what the real challenges are in education.
Okay. Thank you, Aditya. Before I give the chance for the floor to ask question, I would like to ask Pak Ananto again, what would be the support from the Minister of Education in terms of implementing technology in the national education system, Pak?
Thank you. One, and the most important thing, is on the teachers. You see in the OECD's countries, the more the students having a very sophisticated gadget, but the score on the PISA science is not improving. The last 5 years going down. There's something wrong. So technology is a tool. It's like a hammer. It's not going to be replacing the carpenters, As a tools, we need to be very careful and intelligent, smart enough to use the tool. One thing that I would like to mention in this forum is for the role of the teachers. The students must be engaged and know exactly what is the learning goal by using the technology. Otherwise, they use the technology for other things. Second things, the quality is more important than the quantity. A lot of parents here asking, how much time should my kid play with the gadget? 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day? I said, I don't care. The most important is using those hours for what? Only half hour, but they open something which is productive, then it's damaging. So those are very critical. The third thing is pedagogy. Very, very important. The teachers, develop the pedagogy using the gadget. For example, just a second. After the student get a tablet, what is the teachers do? Asking the students to find out a paper in the internet. That's it. Those are very, damaging for our students. The teacher should teach the students not only finding the information, but how to create the information into something. So those are critical. So the students is not using the technology as a, consumers of the technology. But the students have technology to be a creators of the something. Those are very critical, the teachers. So we in the Ministry of Education and Culture now try to develop a new type of the teacher who can work with the technologies.
Okay, thank you, Pak. I'm afraid we don't really have more time to actually have a Q&A. It's a very interesting topic. I'm sure everyone wants to ask questions, but probably separately, if you don't mind, the panelists, everyone can approach the panelists directly after the lunch break. So please give another round of applause to all our panelists.
Thank you, Ms. Haifa Segeir, for moderating our panel discussion. But we would like to invite Mr. Tjahjadi Rahardja, Mr. Aditya Tangri, Mr. Ananto Kusuma Seta, and Ms. Hafia Segeir back on stage, as we would like to give you all your memorandum of appreciation.
We would also like for Dr. Ilham Habibie to give the memorandum of appreciation for our special guest. What an amazing panel discussion and presentations we just all experienced. Can we get a round of applause for that, please? Our first panel discussion has just finished, and now we will have our Friday prayer and lunch break.
We'll see